Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are we just to check in tonight, because I've been looking at this one of the courses with Metavision for about 2 years, and I keep missing the time frame. And I just heard you saying about the bridging course. Are the courses are they starting like imminently? Or...
The higher education courses are starting quite imminently.
Right.
And well, you know, maybe after we've had our talk, you might like to ask again. Were you concerned you might be missing again?
Yeah, I keep on missing it. And I'm just, because I missed it last year, I actually started doing a counselling course with somebody else. I was talking to, who was the lovely lady in your office for about 1.5 years, 2 years?
Deanne, D,
yes, I was talking to her all the time. And then so I started doing another counselling course. I'm not sure whether I should jump off that and come on. Anyway, I may not be able to be here for the whole talk, so I'll just get what I can and maybe I'll call up.
We'll ask you questions, but I don't know whether you're wanting the higher education courses or the specialist training course. And that's the higher education course starts what date, Jeff? In February.
Saturday, the 5th of Feb. Oh, hang on. No, that's the ongoing cohort. So the new cohort's the 11th of Feb for the Masters.
Yep.
So that's still a good few weeks out.
You haven't missed out.
Okay.
Yeah. And to be honest, too, if you've been doing... What is that noise?
Sorry, hang on.
Well, it's not me.
No, that was me.
All right. Sorry for bringing attention to it. I was just worried it was my mic. If you've been doing a counselling course, you probably wouldn't need to do the bridging course to come in, because the bridging course is for people who literally have done no counselling.
Okay, so I've been a counsellor for about 7 months. I'm actually already counselling, and I've been doing it before that for another 15 years. So I don't know if, but in saying
you don't need the bridging course, I can tell you that. That's without a doubt. And the next cohort of the Masters that are starting on the 11th, there's still space in that. So at this point in time, you've not got a problem as far as that plan goes.
And you haven't missed anything?
No.
So, okay, let's begin.
Thank you.
And in doing so, I'd like to first take a moment, just to take a moment to be here, be present, and be present with ourselves and each other. Just taking a moment, because it's always, you know, we all have busy lives, and getting here and being present is really something. And then from that space, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and their ongoing care and wisdom for the land we inhabit and the different nations around the country. Here, where the Metavision hub is and where I live, is the Gundungara people. Everybody's in different places, so please just think of the nation you may be on if you know the name. But I'd like to acknowledge all nations of the traditional custodians of the land and pay deep respects and deep gratitude to the elders, past, present, and emerging, for their ongoing work and care that we also reap benefits of. May we all work together better and better. Thank you. So today, what we're going to do, Jeff, you're going to just show a little of the, put up a slide. Here, Melissa's coming.
Yeah, would you? Would you like me to start with the slides, Christine, or I can?
I'd like
back
you to
and
put
forth?
it up. It shows what we're going to do as well, you know.
Yeah, let's do that.
Today, I'll just talk a bit about the Metavision Institute and what is Metavision and our courses and the Metavision model, a little something of that. We'll talk about all the different courses. Jeff will talk about the higher education. I'll talk about the specialist training, and we'll talk about the professional development courses that we offer together. And we'll also talk about the holistic counselling skills and the bridging course, the foundational counselling skills course. We do have somebody coming in at 7:15 who's a graduate of a couple of years ago, just to share something of her experience. It's nice always to hear and see someone who's been through this and then gone out into the world and hear what they've got to say. And we'll always be open for questions and answers. And if if you need to leave, Louise, please make sure you get your questions answered before you go. It's warning. So the next slide, the Metavision Institute. It was established, we had our first class in 2004, so it's been going for 18 years. We've been accredited with PACFA, which is the Psychotherapy and Counselling Federation of Australia, the peak body for counselling and psychotherapy in Australia. We've been accredited with them for 11 years. We've had what we call the PTP, which is the professional training. We had the last cohort of that group, of that accreditation finish at the end of last year. And at the beginning of last year, we started the next accredited course that we have, which is the specialist training. And now we have higher education accreditation. That, I might say, has been a huge achievement for we're a small private organisation. And to actually achieve that, I'm still a bit gobsmacked, to tell you the truth. I'm really pleased. I know it's been an enormous amount of work and it's gone on for years. And I'm very pleased we finally got through. And we've begun our higher education course in the middle of last year. We got the accreditation. We got passed at the beginning of last year, but we couldn't start then. So we started in the middle of the year. And now we're offering the second intake for that course, which is actually, when I say that course, I mean the graduate diploma, which is a 1-year program, nested with the master's program, which is a 2-year program. That means that the graduate diploma is what everybody does first. If you want to go on, if you want to leave at that point, you can. If you want to go on and get a master's, you stay for the second year. The specialist training program is really a 2-year program, although there is an exit after 1 year for that as well. Talk about that more later. Our courses, they're both based in a holistic worldview and a holistic method of education. We do our best to walk our talk. We're always learning and to be as holistic as possible. We can talk more about that shortly. In talking about the Metavision model, it'll tell you something about it. The way we run the courses is that we offer intensives, 1 week long, 7-day intensives, retreat style intensive workshops. And they start, we introduce 4 units at the beginning of each intensive workshop and at the beginning of each semester. And we do our best to create a real crucible for holding a cohort in this group. We find having a cohort working together and going through the program over the 1 or 2 years together is very important, because the best way for adults to learn is through peer learning. So we don't have individual units that people can come in and out of, but the program, the curriculum, which is really very much the same in each stream of our courses, the graduate diploma and masters and the specialist training, begins with looking at an understanding of the influences on our approach and our model, how it's being put together and how it's grown out of the environment that we're in terms of the development of counselling and psychotherapy and psychology generally. We look at the holistic human being. We always introduce a lot of inner work, and we then introduce our basic method of working, which is the process-oriented approach to counselling and psychotherapy. It's been developed by Arnold Mindell and has grown out of the work of Carl Jung. Arnold Mindell was a physicist, is still alive. He's a physicist and has brought together in his process-oriented approach the Jungian depth psychology, his understanding of quantum physics and Eastern spirituality, and many other influences have been on him as well. We really have found, I've found that his tools and methods are very rich and really develop incredible skills. And the curriculum actually, I mean, the way the courses have begun is, I never really intended to start a school. In fact, I thought that would be a terrible idea, to be quite honest, because I saw someone else start a school, a small school, and I thought, you poor fellow. And here I am, you know. But now, luckily, I've got Jeff too. But the students asked me to teach, and I just felt this incredible, like a bolt of lightning go through me. I thought, what? Oh, I don't think I can do that. And then I thought about it, and then I felt this push in my back, and I thought, oh, well, I'll give it a go. How am I going to give it a go? And I thought, well, I'll have to think about what really works that's arisen out of my own practice, because I've been in, you know, I happen to be quite almost elderly these days. I'm getting on. And I've done a lot of study and a lot of putting things together and then applying them to my practice. And then I thought, well, I'm going to use the things out of the practice that I know works. So that's how the curriculum has developed, basically drawing on my major background, which was social work first when I left school, ages ago. Then I was looking for something more holistic, and that took me to Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine is fantastic. I love it. I just found it is incredibly inspiring in its understanding of the human being and human being in relation to the environment, the nature and the environment, and also the Taoist philosophy that underpins it. And while I don't bring a lot of that into this course, it is an influence on it. And also the work of Rudolf Steiner and his spiritual science, and also his understanding of education, which he, obviously he gave indications for the Steiner schools, which have become successful, and that's been an influence. And then, of course, process-oriented psychology. So these were all the influences, and then working with it and putting it together is what's made the curriculum. And I actually, as I said, I've been in practice for a long time, and I had a client come and see me that saw me a number of years ago. He came with his partner, and they were having some relationship difficulties, and they were in a small business together, which often brings up relationship difficulties, as I found too. Anyway, I worked with him then. He's also a singer and songwriter, and that was about 5 or 6 years ago. And then a few months ago, he rang up and said, oh, look, I need to come and see you again. And he came because he wanted to work on something deeply within himself. And I saw him for about 4 or 5 times. And he came on Tuesday after Christmas. And he said, look, it's fantastic. I'm feeling really good. So much has changed. And he said, this has been amazing. He really thanked me and said, in fact, it was really helpful last time. And I gave you a credit in one of his albums. But this time he said, I think this work has been, and now I'm just trying to think of the words he used. It's gone deep very quickly. It's been very effective, and it's been word anyway. In a short space of time, and I think that summed up what I do see, that this approach, the process-oriented approach we use, and the Metavision model and all the influences have led to a really unique course that does bring powerful skills that allows you to go deep quickly, to work effectively and efficiently. That was the other word. It was, and it provides a simple structure that can help you go deeply, and you can understand what you're doing because of the structure. I mean, there's a lot of training to get to that point, and it also, the main orientation is that we treat the person. We don't treat the problem. We don't see the problem as a problem. We see it as part of a person. And we unfold the messages in all the things that cross our path, and then integrate that into the person's life. And so our life becomes richer. So, yeah. So maybe the next slide, Jeff. What is Metavision? Metavision is a vision that's above and below and around. It's a holistic way of perceiving that sees that the whole is more than the sum of the parts. Next one. Why holistic? We need it. I think we never needed it more. And I love this quote from David Bohm. He said, fragmentation is now very widespread, not only throughout society, but also in each individual. And this is leading to a kind of general confusion of mind. Sorry. There's a fragmentation. All these things are coming at us so much. And it leads to a general confusion of mind, which creates an endless series of problems and interferes with our clarity of perception so seriously as to prevent us from being able to solve most of them. He wrote that in 1980, Wholeness in the Implicate Order, Man's Search for Meaning. That was republished again in 2006, but I think today, after what we've been going through and with the all the things that have happened here in the last 2 or 3 years, 2 years, coming up for our third, it's very easy to see how this fragmentation is affecting all of us. And isolation and lockdowns have amplified that. How about moving on? Next one, Jeff, please. David Bohm. So in these times, there's a real soul hunger. People are wanting soul nourishment. We talk about what is soul. And there's a spiritual thirst. Really, people are looking for meaning and soul nourishment. That's what we are aiming at giving. And I think that it's so important we understand the times we're in. So I've talked about the holistic frames. Next one. These are the Metavision model. This is a little picture. You might have seen it on the website, but it shows a lot of the things that are part of it. We look at body symptom work. We use it for counseling and psychotherapy. It can be used in education, in health, lifestyle and well-being, in facilitation. We put a lot of emphasis on developing self-awareness and personal growth. We use creativity, art and music where we can, where as it fits in. People say, is this art therapy? I said, no, it's not art therapy, but we do art in our therapy where it's appropriate. And we also have music, when we're lucky and when we can come together, I never thought I'd say that, we have the most wonderful person who gets us to sing together a bit. And, you know, the effect of that is so amazing. Also, another thing that's very important in this approach is understanding the value of movement. You know, in a lot of counseling, therapy, psychology, people sit in a room and, you know, sit still and don't do much movement. But movement is a very important and unoccupied channel of awareness, as we say. So, you know, there's all sorts of things, and there's a lot of influence on this approach. Let's go on to the model a bit further, Jeff. So, so in this model, we see that mind, body, and emotions don't have separate causes, and the symptoms, so that's mind, body, and the emotions, or soul, or psyche, which is the Greek word for soul, don't have separate causes, and the symptoms don't have separate solutions. You have to work with it all together. And one of the beautiful things that Arnold Mindell brought was this notion of an awareness continuum. You know, in the roots of analytic psychotherapy, there's been a more vertical axis of the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious. Here, together with that sort of awareness, and again in process work, we look at 3 levels of awareness, at least one of those levels, but this awareness continuum where what's closer to our awareness and what's further away from our awareness is very important to understand. And we know that what's further away from our awareness is tugging at us, wanting to bring things to our awareness that help us wake up. And that's where all the problems and issues arise, to help us become more fully ourselves through this process. So in this model, we see that that everything is in constant interaction with mutual influence, both internally with each other and with the whole environment. And that environment is as big as it can possibly be, you know, from what's immediately around us, who's immediately around us, what are the times, you know, the times are really calling for certain things. And what we provide here, and what I believe, is that this approach is really a wonderful answer to working with people who are struggling in these times, and there are a lot of them. So being aware of the communication between body, sensations, feelings, and thoughts gives meaning and purpose to the unfolding life journey. And symptoms and discomfort and relationship problems and all sorts of things are opportunities for awareness and engagement. So the more you experience what's going on in the mind, body, and emotions with awareness, the closer you get to the essential patterns of your own nature. This is part of the Metavision model. You become more congruent, and greater flow and meaning become present in your life. So let's go on, Jeff, see what the next one says. I don't know what it says. And then we talk about the educators. You know, everybody, we've got a lot of wonderful teachers actually here at Metavision, teaching different things. And they're all highly experienced in their unique skills, whatever they bring, and area of expertise, and bring a diversity of experience into the classroom. And together we build a team at Metavision. Jeff, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, just for myself, my PhD was in consciousness, in the way that people relate to nature and how that's changed since, you know, for I guess the difference between the hunter-gatherer or the close nature connection that all people have always had, and then the way that civilizations evolved over the last 10 millennia. So I also did a master's before that on dreams and myths, how our dreams connect us to mythologies. And big Jungian and Joseph Campbell background on that. So just for myself, you know, I'm bringing a lot of that work around symbols and myths, but in both my master's and PhD, I also worked with Freud and Jung and all the great traditions of psychology, how we think about how we think. And it's been great to join Metavision and be able to use all that kind of work in a really therapeutic way, which I've done before, but I think this is a more spiritual or soulful focus, which I find really intuitive and satisfying. But yeah, as far as the team goes too, it's been great to start to build the team. We've got a couple of process work teachers, one who's based at the Process Work Institute in Portland, Oregon, another one who's based in Canberra. So as many of us as possible will come together and teach face-to-face in the Southern Highlands, and occasionally we'll have a guest lecturer online on a screen. I guess we do that because we want the best. We want the best teachers, and you know, luckily nowadays we don't have to be constrained by distance.
No, this is one of the benefits of COVID, isn't it?
Yeah, and technology. So thanks, Christina.
Yeah, can we take the next slide? So, so with this work and because we've been going for 18 years, we've been able to do some assessment of our graduates, and we found that we have a high retention rate, and 74% of the graduates are working as holistic counsellors or therapists. What we do, what I feel is very important, we do a lot of inner work and experiential work. We work very much with ourselves in this course, and we set people up. As I said before, we work with a cohort, and in that cohort, you are set up with study buddies or a small study group. We really encourage and require that you work with your study buddies on a very regular basis to enhance learning. You know, that's how adults learn best. The research shows that adults learn best through peer interaction. So out of that crucible of learning, where there's room for people to make mistakes and find things that, you know, are difficult, they're supported, and then the group becomes really close. People make deep, long, lifelong friends through this time. And then so we've been, and so what we do really encourage is that all the students, each person develops their own style. It's not like we're trying to tell you how you've got to be. We're giving you the foundation of how to work holistically and how to work with what comes towards you using the tools that you learn through the course. And so those people that are going out, the graduates who are working as therapists and counsellors, are doing it in all sorts of different ways. We've found that these graduates, of 26% said that they see over 10 clients a week, which is good. 64% of students live and work outside the major metropolitan areas. We find that because of the way we structure the course. And 90% of our graduates found the experiential learning environment very important. So can we go on, Jen? We won't worry. Look, the fees and the admission criteria and so on are all on the website. I think won't go into that too much. So we'll talk a bit about the courses. Would you like to talk about the higher education now?
Yeah, and I should start by saying I didn't have my date exactly right. So the new cohort that will be starting this year actually begins on Monday, the 14th of Feb. Louise asked, and I thought it was the 11th. But the higher ed course, I mean, I've been in this space for a while. I got my PhD in 2010. That was through Monash. university, I did a lot of teaching for Monash and for RMIT in Melbourne. But I became more and more interested in the holistic space and in the therapeutic space, and I've got some really good connections in Europe and in North America. This course would be up there in the top handful in the world right now. To have a master's in holistic counselling and psychotherapy, there'd only be 3 or 4 others in the world that would be comparable to this, and I know that for a fact. And I know the people that are in those ones as well, teaching them and so forth. So what a great opportunity for Australia to be able to have a course like this, to step up to that same plate. The idea of transformative education, I think it's been around for a while, but like the idea of holism, the idea of connectedness, all of these things are only becoming more and more important, in my opinion. So, more specifically, the Masters, so that's a 2-year course. As Christina mentioned, the first year of it is technically a graduate diploma. We all do that together. So far from our first cohort, it looks like about 90% of them will be going straight along into the Masters as well. So what we're doing in the first year is we're just trying to set that groundwork. What is holistic? What's a holistic person? What does that include? We do body awareness. We do like mind-nature connection. We talk about, I think, I'll just say personally, I think my favorite thing from Steiner is the subtle bodies. And I think this is something that Western science has not always dealt with particularly well. But it's those things that we know are intuitively true, that we just can't track. They're not visible, they can't be quantified. But what I'm really interested in, and my personal spiritual practice, is Zen. When I do Zen meditation, and I do ecotherapy as well, so I find they work really well together. When I'm sitting in nature and I feel connected and my mind is open, then I have experiences that are not quantifiable, and sometimes they're not qualifiable. It's hard to even know what's happening, but it's important for me to have a space to be able to think that through. And probably the other thing I think we're doing really well is filling a gap that's neither New Age on one side or scientific and reductionist on the other side, but right in the middle. How can we be totally open-minded to what we experience as humans with conscious awareness? And how at the same time can we actually critically analyze that and ask ourselves, what just happened? Or why is that person I know, or that client, or that family member addicted to this thing? What is it about their consciousness that keeps them coming back for more of that thing, whatever it is, even though they know it's not very good for them? So we're setting the groundwork in the first year for really thinking through these ways of being that are really open to anything, but also you can bring your questions along. That's the quality of higher education. We want to keep questioning. When I looked into Metavision and coming over, I said to Christina, but you have to understand, this is higher education, Christina. They have to be able to question everything, including the course. And she was right on board for that. This is about becoming, I guess in Jung's term, individuating, becoming the most of yourself as you can possibly be. And I love the paradox of that being so specific and unique to my experience of being a person, that it gets to the point where it's actually also completely selfless and universal. So I can feel completely true to myself, but also just be open to the whole universe and and the life force and the nature around me in the same body mind. So first year, lots of groundwork, some Steiner, some Mindell, the process work that Christina talked about, also some other stuff. What is the medical model doing? What's psychiatry doing about all this stuff? Where do we fit alongside them? Not opposed to them. And then in the second year, we really kind of ramp it up into those specialist areas that are so important nowadays. So we do a whole subject on trauma and abuse, and we do a subject on addictive tendencies and that kind of thing. We do some research in the second year. And of course, we do placement. So
And we
people,
also, there's a couple
you know,
more.
either.
Can I add those topics in?
Yeah, I wasn't going to list every single thing. You can if you want. Sorry,
Well,
you
I
go.
think we also do a whole unit on biography, looking at the metamorphosis of the human life through from birth through to death and whatever might be on either side of that. And I think that's a very important part of seeing how all the different phases mirror each other. And that comes up in therapy quite a lot too. So it's important. And these issues like trauma or grief or loss and death and addictive tendencies and so on all fit into that too. Jeff, perhaps we could take away the slideshow now. We don't need it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, I guess just the one last thing on the slide there that I wanted to mention is, you know, it's even though I have a conventional university background as a very experimental background in creative therapies. But, you know, the Metavision semester is pretty different. So we start each semester with a 7-day intensive. And then we have pretty much weekly Zoom classes where we all get together and we go over some of the material. And at the end of each second semester the second and fourth semesters, we have another 3-day intensive at the end to cap and to share. So it's slightly different look, really suits very well people who are, you know, who already have other things going on, families or professions and so forth. So it's so
it also means people can travel from North Queensland or anywhere all over Australia. We've had in the past people coming in from overseas. At the moment, of course, it's a little difficult.
Yeah, so that's the higher ed course in a nutshell. And I'm happy for anyone to get in touch and to ask more questions about that for sure. So you can go through the office and get a connection through to me because I am the course coordinator in that course. I can answer any questions about the Masters or the Grad Dip. But as Christina suggested earlier, we're also doing some short courses. We're trying to offer more things, especially online. So the one of those that I present is holistic ecotherapy. It's a field that I'm really highly motivated by. I'm actually the Australian representative to the International Eco-Psychology Society. So that's a space that I'm really comfortable in and inspired by. So I run a short holistic ecotherapy course online, and then we have an advanced course which we're going to run on country. And I feel like I had a lot of requests to run that one online as well, but I think we really need to stick to our guns. The advanced, we'll keep running the online course for the introductory, and then anyone that's come through that can come to the advanced course, which is more for practitioners or for people who want to be practitioners to actually do ecotherapy together. So that's really exciting. That'll be coming up in March, but the online course is still available anytime. Christina, what other professional development courses do we have?
Well, we had one. We have an associate professor working with us, Stephen Siegel. He ran a professional development. He will be doing some teaching in the higher education program in research. He's really encouraging scholarship and research. He runs a hermeneutic circle within the institute, but he also ran a professional development course on from novice to expert for counselling and psychotherapy, and that was a great success.
That's right.
And we've got some other beautiful ones coming up. Here, Annalise has got a question, and I'd just like to welcome Indigo. She's just come in. Indigo will be available to say, she'll say something about her experience of studying at Metavision, and also answer any questions for you on that. Now, Annalise is trying to understand the difference between the graduate diploma and the specialist training. Yes, that is a very important question. The specialist training, the program, the curriculum is much the same. In the specialist training, the entry requirement is not quite as high. With the graduate diploma and masters, you have to have an undergraduate degree before you can even think of entering. But with the specialist training, there's greater flexibility for entering that. And the course is accredited with PACFA. It depends on what you're coming in with as to whether the PACFA will accept membership for you, but we're trying to make sure that will happen. They don't guarantee that, but the course itself has been accredited. The 2-year program is accredited with PACFA and is equivalent to their training standards. So it's an equivalent pathway, and they've been very complimentary actually about our course. So the difference, the specialist training has a bit more emphasis on the experiential part of it and application in terms of clinical work. The graduate diploma and masters is a bit more academic. I don't want to, but that's the way I put it. We cover, the curriculum actually is very much the same. So you can tell that the curriculum in the specialist training program is at the level of postgraduate work. You want to say anything else, Jeff?
No, that sounds about right. My one-liner at the moment is the masters is for people who want a masters.
Yes, that's right.
It's it's very highly valued out there in the field. So
that's correct. And those who don't need a masters, masters is also more expensive because it's cost quite a lot for us to get there, I can tell you. And so the PACFA accredited course is cheaper. We are trying to make it more readily available to people, but people who want to have a master's or a internationally recognised postgraduate course then go through the graduate diploma and master's pathway. It's why we went to the trouble of getting it, because counselling and psychotherapy is a new field. It's growing up. And it's growing up between social work, psychology, psychiatry, and medicine, and it's very much more soul-based. So it's got to sort of prove itself, and gradually the requirements for the training is getting tighter and tighter. So people graduating from Metavision, and maybe Indigo, you can be able to say something about this, coming out. It's sometimes not so easily recognised because it's not a government accredited training program, and that always bothered me, and I felt that it would be great if we could offer something that is highly accredited, because it lifts the bar, or the recognition, the reputation for everyone. So there's a question here, and then I'll introduce Indigo, from Ishka, who says, how much contact hours per week for the 2-year trainings? For the specialist training, what was that? How much contact hours did you say? Wait a minute, let me do that again. How much contact hours? We have Zooms every now and again. We have Zooms that usually go before an assessment, and as Jeff said before, there's usually a Zoom or a tutorial or a class of an hour and a half on a Tuesday once a week. But otherwise, between intensives, the contact that you have is with your study buddies and us if you need it, but it's not a set time. So there are assessments that are coming for all the 4 units throughout the semester, and there's due dates for those. So you then work with them in your own time, finding your own contact time. Does that answer, Ishka? Good. And I think when I say Ishka, I probably did say Ishta. before. Yeah. Okay. Let me introduce Indigo. Thank you for coming on. Indigo has a little baby and she needed to look after her baby. Indigo, when did you graduate?
Yeah, I just looked that up actually before the call because it feels like such a recent thing, but it was actually 2 years ago now. So it's just before COVID hit. So it's like the last lot that went through before the world went crazy. Yeah. So so shall I just go ahead, Christina?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I did the 2-year psychotherapy and counseling course, and I guess I came through to Metavision from the mainstream psychology honors sphere. I was in that for about 10 years, and I did a lot of work with at-risk youth in London at Solus. So I was then working in the dementia sphere when I came across Metavision, and it just lit me up. I got very excited about the course and the content and the idea of having intensives and connecting with people in a real way. But I kind of ignored it for a little bit. And then eventually I actually signed up, and then that's when I went for my 2-year training with Metavision. The course itself is, for me, it was really transformational in how I work with clients and how I see therapy being used within my practice. It's far more applied, and I think Christina used the word soul. It brings the soul into your clinical work, and I personally really needed that. The other thing it really does is it gets you to do your own inner work. And crazy, but I did 10 years of study through psychology, and we did no inner work. It was nuts. So I really, really personally needed that kind of holding. The actual course structure itself is really beautiful. You have a lot of very talented therapists that come through and run courses, and I am really interested in grief and death. So those sort of topics were brought in a real way. So I really appreciated them being brought in. The intensives were by far, they are intense, but they are fantastic. And they are by far the best thing for me about the course, because it really consolidated the learnings. So I found, the intensives fantastic. I found the research project, I came from a very science background, but I found this research project was very applied. And it was a topic I was loved. So I got to do research in the way I wanted to for the first time ever. So that was my 2 years. What else can I say? It's life-changing. Transformational is probably the word I would use, my own experience. Everyone will have their own word that comes out in the end. And then, I graduated 2 years ago. So I kind of took some time getting into private practice, but I've set up my private practice now. So I have a practice called I Am Wellness, and I've been running that. I also podcast. So, and actually a friend I met at Metavision, she and we do a podcast together, and we're into the 3rd season of that. I do some publication work, and I'm doing some online courses as well with another friend. So I think what I would say from that is this field you can go so many different avenues with it. It's very creative, and I encourage you to be creative and kind of figure out what you're passionate about, right? Because it's not just sitting in a room with a one-on-one client. If you don't want it to be, if that's what you want, that's great. But you get to really build your practice the way you want. And I'd encourage you just to try all of these different things and see, what works for you, also what subject lights you up. Like maybe you're going to be really interested in ecotherapy, or you're going to be really interested in grief and loss, or you're going to be, just see what kind of lights up your soul and go for it. I think that's my piece.
Thank you, Indigo. Yeah, thanks. It's so great to have you come and share your experience. Yeah, I mean, it's quite a journey. The personal development really goes at a pace with the content, doesn't it? Do you find?
Yeah, and oh my gosh, like process oriented psychology, absolutely life changing, like amazing way of learning and engaging. So yeah, it ticked everything I needed from coming from that place of lack. Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask of Indigo? Indigo, would you mind if people contacted you later if they wanted to?
Yeah, of course. I think you've got all my details, Christina. Just
would you like to put it in the chat?
Yeah, I can put it in chat. And honestly, if you've got any questions at all, like I'm so open and available to absolutely anything. So just send it through.
Indigo, can I ask what your podcast is?
It's called Therapia. I'll put a link in the chat as well if you're interested. Yeah, it's therapists talking to therapists. Yeah. That's my email. I'll just grab the link.
Thank you very much.
Question: do people work full-time and do the training? I advise that full-time is too much. That you know, I look, I just want to be straight with people. I try to set people up for success. I just, you know, I don't want people coming along on kind of false hopes. I think it's too hard. I would say 1 day a week just for study would be a rock bottom absolute minimum. My preference is for 2. You know, we do have some students that are super lucky and actually can do the course full time, which is amazing. But you know, but not everyone can. I wouldn't be able to.
My goal is to do the training and then be able to work as effectively as I can. I do have a bachelor's degree, undergrad, so I'm still trying to figure out which one I really should be doing.
When you say work as effective, that's a great to pick that up again. And it would have been good to have said, you know, it's not only the entry requirements, but what you're wanting to do with the afterwards. If you want to, you can work as a counsellor and psychotherapist out of either course. You can become a member of an association, you know, with PACFA largely, with both courses. There's also the ACA. The ACA won't take you if you don't have a government accredited course, which is partly why we went to PACFA. And what PACFA wanted to do was really maintain a diversity within their field.